Nelson Paredes Parks. He is a talent manager, business manager, business coach, executive coach. Nelson wears many hats. Today he has one hat on, and it's backwards for those that are just listening. So Nelson, where do you join us from today?
I'm here in Los Angeles, California, in Century City.
Century City, yes. So the part of your profile that stood out for me was the talent manager, working with actors, working with people in the entertainment industry. It is a world that I do not have much experience with or familiarity with. You do.
Yep, I grew up in the business. I started as a kid actor in Chicago. I remember going to Second City as a kid, and that was such an awesome experience. And that was at Columbia College in Chicago. Moved out to California when I was 18 and a half, 19, something like that. And then I continued working out here for a bit and started coaching as an acting coach, and have taught thousands of clients as an acting coach for years, and then started managing talent. And now I've been managing talent for over 30 years.
Yeah. So let's dig into the archives of life here. Second City, are we talking like John Candy, and we're talking places? Is that where you're going with me or not?
Yeah. I mean, I was in the youth program. So that was honestly when I was a teen, this was
okay.
Like 14, 16. I mean, I remember being in class with like Hal Sparks, and so it was an amazing adventure growing up doing that. It was a definite thing that gave me a lot of confidence in life. And it was just one of the highlights of my teen years.
Yeah. You mentioned confidence. That's really what is that really what being an actor is being extremely confident at delivering your role?
When I look at actors that work a lot, it's really, I mean, I've had a client, I remember one time going to, with a client to a studio network test session. And I saw numerous clients out in the lobby, and I could tell the client that was going to book. And unfortunately, that time it wasn't mine, but I just looked through the lobby and I saw like who was the client that just was the most gregarious, the one that just like oozed confidence. And that was the client that booked the series, so it really, that goes a long way. You can be a brilliant actor, but if you don't know how to walk in a room and own the room, you're really not going to get the show, so
what is that, Nelson? What is that? So this is fascinating to me, because you have studied, worked with, analyzed human beings for that it factor, that factor that others perhaps don't see, but yet you can recognize because what you do for a living. How do you define that it factor when you see somebody? What do they ooze? What do they resonate when they walk into a room? What is it, Nelson? Like, what is it, that one thing you're like, oh yeah, that person is something about them? What's that aura? What is it?
Well, honestly, it's like I can tell in seriously 10 seconds. Like the second a client walks in my room, I can see the way they have eye contact, the way they carry themselves. It's really a gut feeling at this time. I don't need to even talk to someone for 10 or 15 minutes. I watch the way they walk in the room. When I used to teach acting, I would have a class that was all dedicated to just learning how to walk in the room. And for 3 hours, all I did with clients is like confidence walking in the room, knowing what to say when walking a room, knowing how to assess the room, analyzing the room to see like how large the space was. So do you need to like be a little quieter in that room, or do you need to use your voice and really project? So, there's really an art to owning walking in a room. And that really translates to any career in life. If you can't, I have 6-year-olds that are more confident than adults. So when I'm mentoring and working with clients, like one of the most important things that I'm focused on is like, do you know how to have that eye contact? Do you know how to walk in that room and just own it 100%?
Yeah, it's when you have awareness about it and you consider it, you can make an impression. But if you don't have any awareness, you're just really kind of walking around mindlessly and aimlessly, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, and one of the things that I will focus on with a client when I'm really getting them to the point to be like a working actor, I want to make sure that they can, work on their breath work. One of the things that I'll say, if you can actually, in the way that you do a performance, shift the way someone's breathing in the room, you're going to have a real shot at getting that role. So it's about giving a performance that when people are watching it, it stops them, it stops their breath, it changes their breath pattern. So if you can actually figure out in a meeting how to change someone's breath pattern, that will really impact and make a difference for you to remember that person. Because again, casting directors interview hundreds and hundreds and thousands of actors over the years. But if you can shift their space, like when you go to the movies, that's all that's happening. You're shifting them space. Like, let's say you're watching a horror film or you're watching, a film that makes you cry. You're really shifting their breathing pattern. So if you can, as a talent, know how to do that, you can really be a very powerful actor.
I never considered it that way before, Nelson, the way you've put it that way. But I'm speaking to the listeners right now, what I'm thinking, but what you're saying to me is my role as an actor is to change the viewer's breath pattern, get them breathing faster, get them breathing slower, but make them react with their breath emotionally to what I'm doing in front of them.
Yeah, and I think this does not just relate to being an actor. This could really be in the industry. It's like when you have a meeting, if you can actually shift the space, like that's how you command real power and can really make an impact in whatever industry you're working with. So one of the things that I do with my business coaching with many of my clients is I do some media coaching where I really prepare them to be able to know like how to be on camera, what to do, what to say, what not to say, how to breathe. So it's a whole sort of media coaching training sort of situation. So I can prepare, sometimes it's just business owners that need to have more confidence walking into meetings.
Yes.
So it's really about being so aware about your surroundings. So, I have a 10-point checklist of things that we do to really make sure that like you can own the space.
I gotta be honest, man. I have completely taken for granted what you've just taught me in the last 4 minutes. And what I mean by that is to sit down with a business owner, because I'll speak with business owners and consult and coach and have conversations about helping them. I never think about how they enter a room. I never think about how they address the camera, like you and I are speaking to each other right now. I never think about those human things that I just do to coach somebody else the way that you're creating awareness with me right now.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of times I'll do it when I've had many clients come into my office. This was really at the beginning of my career. I'd have let's say a mom was bringing her kid into my office because I represent a lot of very successful kids in the business.
Okay.
A mom would come in and she would be like completely like
Closed
off, and she starts the meeting like this. And then my goal and job is that by the end of the meeting to have her open up, be able to chill back, talk differently. So sometimes I will match their energy. So I'll mimic them, not in a way that they won't even notice that I'm doing, but when they walk in, they start, maybe they're like this. And then by the end, we just end up flowing more and really connecting. So it's also important to figure out how you do that with another person in the middle of the meeting, So over the years, I've learned like what we need to do to just have a client relax and really be able to connect with you, and people will walk into the room in many different states. So it's important for you to be able to know kind of how to match styles. People do business with people they like. So you need to find out how do you, like if someone talks very quickly, and you talk really slowly, and you actually might bug the person, because they don't talk in the same rhythm or the same pattern. So if they talk really quickly, I'm going to start matching them and that sort of thing, and then slowly maybe shift it a little bit during the meeting.
Right, to pull the pace down. I watched you do this example of crossing your arms, and I have to be honest, I stepped into a meeting about 2 weeks ago, Nelson, and it was an uncomfortable meeting with my local professional hockey team that I was frustrated with as a season ticket holder. True story. So I walked into the meeting, and the executive sitting in front of me was doing just like you did, which was arms crossed. And we were on a FaceTime call, and I noticed that the first thing I saw was, okay, they're sitting like that. All right. My goal, Nelson, by the end of the meeting was to be doing this with them. And I succeeded because I knew going in that, okay, they're blocked off with me right now. So I had to, use my energy to open those arms up.
Yeah, and you don't really know where they came from. They might have just come from like breaking up with their girlfriend or boyfriend or something.
Right.
So they're in a space of like just not a great space. They might have had a bad day, So it's just important to just like look at your surroundings, know who's in the room, look at the lighting, listen to the sounds in the room, like really be able to flow with your environment, be in the moment, and then obviously connect.
Yes. Yeah. 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 I use my personality, my energy to change people's breath work. I walk in the room and they're like, "Oh."
Yep, yep, very true, very true. Well, that's an important, wise thing to do, I think, at any point in anyone's career.
I think so. I think so. So you talk about working actors. When we talk about working actors, we let me rephrase that. I think when people think about working actors, we all of a sudden go to the big movie stars of the world. But the reality is there's more working actors working day to day than there are the handful of people that are making the gazillions of dollars making movies.
Yeah, when you watch a TV show, there's all these co-star or guest starring roles on a series. So there's a lot of other work that like is going on. I mean, our industry right now is a little bit of a tight position. There is a lot, there's less work right now because there's less series being produced. So, after the strike, we thought it was going to be super busy. It hasn't really ramped up yet, but I think we're going to get back to the business, probably in a couple months, but it's not been as um, quickly as we thought it would recoup after both the pandemic and the strike.
It's been it's really affected the industry, has it not?
Yeah, it really has. But I think there's been so many elements that are having things be affected, like considering AI. Look at
Yes.
AI and how that's just revolutionizing every single industry. So right now, like even as a business owner, not only do you need to do your job, but you need to make sure that you're educating yourself and you're
Mhm.
learning all these extra special skills and programs and things you could be using so you can stay relevant. One of the things that I did recently is I created another website called the AIexpert.com. And so what I was trying to do is merge AI and entertainment into a conversation. So at least we as a community in the entertainment business could start discussing a little bit about what are the implications of AI? Like, where's AI going to be in a year from now and 2 years from now? What should you as a business owner look at with your current business? Are certain elements of your job going to be replaced? Now, I don't think that AI is going to replace people per se, but it is going to replace people that can't keep up with AI in their industry. So I created a resource center and I had a Zoom with about 90 agents, casting directors, producers, people in the entertainment business, and just started a dialogue, a healthy dialogue. And we're going to continue that throughout this year to just educate people on like what small little steps could you do on a day-to-day basis and how to use AI in a way that you're not necessarily alienating and cutting out like your colleague's business, but there are things that I think that if you don't do, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah. This is great, Nelson, because so what's the number one concern from that community, from your
Well, I
community?
mean, realistically, like with writers are concerned that like, with AI, they'll be able to write entire scripts, and then you as a writer, your job will be gone. Now, I use GPT on a daily basis and, I will type up certain things and it's never quite my voice, but it's great for certain things. It's great for creating an itinerary or a list of things or like, catching up. Like the other day I had to get ready for a meeting and I didn't have an hour and a half to prepare for that meeting. So I dumped in a document that was a 50-page document. And I had to read it and it gave me a quick summary.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool to be able to use like, oh, give me a summary of what these 50 pages say so I can be prepared for my meeting. So, there's things like that you can use it for. And each day, like when I scroll through my phone and I keep seeing the amount of different companies that are adding AI services for you to be able to use, it's just mind boggling.
Mhm.
So, as a business owner, you need to just stay ahead of the curve, keep learning, keep one of the new things I'm doing is I'm starting a monthly mastermind right now to really connect with a bunch of owners, in the entertainment space to make sure that we're keeping ahead of like, in the business or you're going to be left behind. So it's important to stay connected, have a group of people that like are your colleagues that you can kind of grow with and help each other's businesses. I find that when, you do that as a business owner, it really helps you thrive.
I think a comment about being left behind, Nelson, is important. Nelson is important because it's the speed at which it's rapidly changing workflows to me is where it's having the biggest impact. I know as I've been building the Business Athlete Performance Lab, Bapl here is really a new style media company. The amount of time which I can innovate and create mass amounts of content is extraordinary to me.
Mhm.
The key is to create quality content rapidly, because it's easy for everybody to create shitty content and then spam the hell out of it, right? So it's finding this measure, this balance of good narrative, good storytelling, creating it and distributing it effectively, and then doing it again. Because these workflows that are cutting time out for me, like I can take, like Nelson, right now, I'm doing some days 2 to 3 hours of live shows a day. True story. I
Yep.
get some I get some people in the legacy media business. I'm taking 1 hour as a live media show, and within 12 minutes, I'm getting it out, distributed across all the podcast networks, chopped up, and they're looking at me like, and I'm like, no, you just got to learn these new tools because it's not 1984 anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, when I talked to a bunch of my colleagues, I realized that so many people were not, they weren't even using ChatGPT, which I was like,
Yeah,
you're not even using the very basic tools
very.
that you started. So I think, it is important to stay educated, and, I always have a mentor that's mentoring me, and over the last couple of years, I started building another brand called Help and Answers. And Help and Answers is a business coaching business that helps business entrepreneurs and people that really want to get their business and life to that next level. And I found that most people, every company in America has a business plan. So if every company has a business plan, then you should also have a business plan for yourself. You are more important than any business out there. So what I help people do is I help them build an intricate business plan for their life. And we go through every area of your life. We plan out all 168 hours of your week. We go through what you're doing with your time. Then we go through your money. What are you doing with your today money, your future money, and your future money? And we have a plan for like what that looks like. Then we look at your network. How are you growing your network? Who's on your team? Then we're going to look at your boundaries. Like what boundaries do you have in your life? So we go through a 12-week program where we go through every space in your life. We look at your digital space. We look at your space at home. We look at your space in your car. So I have like 60 different helpful forms and sheets that go through every area of your life. And we kind of take an inventory, of like what is so, and then we figure out like, how do you scale up? How do you actually scale your life up so you can handle getting to that next level? Like this cup here, it says always half full. So for me, it's really important to make sure that if your cup is at like the total, if you pour water in this thing, this cup only is going to, once water hits this line, it's going to obviously overflow. So if you're not growing yourself, and you're not growing your cup, you're never going to be able to handle the capacity that you need to have to be able to go next level. So one of the things I'm always working on is like, let's look at your cup. How much of it is full, and how much do we need to actually grow your cup so you can actually be able to get to that next level of your life? So that's what I help a lot of people and businesses do. And I find that the wise people that decide to invest in themselves are the ones that are really impacting and getting it, to that next level of their life. So just as much as I'm coaching people, I always have coaches coaching me because I think it's an important thing to get, balance into that next level of people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Where do you get your coaching from, Nelson?
I have a variety of mentors. I break the relationships into my life into a couple different categories. I have
Okay.
people that are peers, I have people that I'm mentoring, and I have people that are mentoring me. And I think it's important to have a balance of that, because if all I'm doing is mentoring people, then I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted and I'm just giving to people. At the
Mhm.
same time, if all I'm doing is getting mentored by people, then I'm becoming selfish. Like all I'm doing is it's all about me. It's all about me. And same thing with peers. So you need to make sure that you have people that you just have fun with. But if all you do is just have fun with peers, also you're going to have not that fulfilling life that you probably want to have. So what I'm always doing is looking at what is the relationship between the people I'm mentoring, the people that are mentoring me, and the people that are my peers, and make sure that I have those quality relationships in my life, and balancing that out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nelson, why does somebody choose you as their coach over somebody else, especially in the talent industry that you work within?
Well, with the entertainment management company that I have called the ESI Network, I've been, working with talent for over 30 years. So I've done it a while. I am definitely one of the kid experts. Like if you want to get your kid into show business, I've seen it, I've done it, I've had clients on multiple series over the years. I've coached thousands of actors. I understand actors. I understand parents and what their needs are. So from that perspective, like I know how to get clients to the point where they're working. I work with nearly every agency in Hollywood that reps talent. Um, and so we know what to do to help clients get to that next level. But I work very differently than the average manager. I really care about the human being. I want to make sure your kid, if like you have a kid in the business, I want to make sure that your kid has fun with this. I want to make sure that you have a grounded life. I want to make sure that this is just a part-time fun activity until it becomes a thriving career. So I think our approach is very different there. So with entertainment people, I think we're different because we care so differently than the average manager. It's not just about getting that job and getting them famous. I'll say to people, if you want to be famous, don't come to me. I have clients that have gotten famous, but if that's all you want, if all you want is fame, go somewhere else. I really care about the individual, the longevity of individual, making sure that the kid loves this and they're doing this for the right reasons. So that's the kind of client that's going to come to us. And that's why we have clients that have been here for years. Now, on the business management coaching side, through my brand called Help and Answers, I think the average person that wants to get coached with me is someone that really wants great systems and structures. And again, since I've coached thousands of actors over the years, I've worked with so many people. I've gone to so many sort of networking organizations to really learn what it takes to be successful. And I surround myself with a lot of heavy hitter players in the world that really are up to making an impact. So those are some of the reasons of why someone would choose to work with, myself and or some of my organizations.
Now, so what's the number one reason in your point of view why somebody is successful?
It's because they're asking the right questions. So with Help and Answers, our belief is that your life is dictated by the questions you ask yourself or the questions you don't ask yourself in your life. So if you ask yourself powerful questions, you're going to have certain sort of things that show up in your life. And if you don't ask yourself questions as well, you're also going to have a certain type of life. So I think that is one of the crucial things that I'm daily doing. It's like asking myself deeper, more powerful questions, and then doing the same with all your team members and asking them questions so that you can start thinking out of the box and to be able to thrive.
Give me an example of a question.
So for example, a question could be, when I look at my time and I'm not being so effective with it, how do I need to be more effective on a day-to-day basis so I can make a bigger impact in my community? So and I will go down a trail of like question after question after question after question until I really start coming up with answers. And I have many helpful forms and sheets that help me do that and help me break down questions so that I can be able to like be a little bit more powerful in what I'm up to.
It's about creating awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like really what I like to do is put a mirror to my face. It's like really looking at like what's working, what's not working, what do I need to do to actually have something work better. So I'm always in an inquiry in life, and I think that it keeps you younger. I think it keeps you happier. I think it keeps you healthier. I think it's so important to be able to kind of give yourself a reality check on a week to week basis. So that I think the friends of mine that do that seem to be moving forward in many key ways and enjoy their life as they're doing it. So asking questions is one of the most powerful things that I think anyone can do.
You're speaking to you're you got to preach to me, man. I think one of the greatest attributes a human can have is being curious.
Yep, 100%.
Right. And I don't know if enough people are curious enough. Enough people accept the answers, accept what's being presented in front of them, but don't ask enough questions around it.
Yep. And I think you have to do that with any business that you're building because, life is shifting at such a fast pace nowadays. You look at life 100 years ago from like how life is today. And if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results in your life, it's going to be challenging. So you have to constantly be reinventing. If you look at people that reinvent their life all the time, those people, really thrive.
That's the greatest metaphor of acting, is it not, Nelson? Where you see successful actors having the ability to reinvent themselves and go through different stages of their career and stay relevant, frankly, because they're constantly reinventing who they are. Actors, musicians. Would you agree with that? The same thing with business too, no?
Yep, 100%, 100%. People that are reinventing themselves daily, I mean, you want to keep your core values obviously in life, but you
Yes.
want to reinvent how you see things, how you do things, how you work with people, so that is crucially important.
Which leads back to a conversation we've been having a ton lately, Nelson, is this idea of a personal brand, right?
Mhm.
So perhaps what you were yesterday compared to what you are today is really this idea of reinventing yourself. You know who's been, in my point of view, one of the greatest reinventors, lover or hater? Uh, Madonna.
It's funny that you brought that up. That's exactly what I was going to say, because I mean, she has just, always been, ahead of her time and asking deep, powerful questions and quite the artist, obviously.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I'm glad you used the word artist, Nelson. I think that business and good business people
Hmm.
are like artists, are creative and have that kind of that artistic flair to them. And I'm not suggesting that somebody who doesn't have that is not a good business person, but I think those that have that je ne sais quoi to them stand out differently. Am I making sense with what I'm trying to suggest to you?
100%, 100%. And I think, if your goal is just to make money and make rich and be rich, you're not really helping, humanity. So I think it is so important to look at like how and what you provide, like what is your vision, what is your message, and be committed to impacting people. When you impact people, the money will just come, because you're making a difference, So I think years ago, I think, in my 20s, when I first started my business, I was all about, like, oh, I just got to make money. I got to make money. But honestly, at some point, it switched for me. I'm like, huh, like that's all about me, and
Mhm.
that I'm trying to get ahead. And I think that people can sense that on you. If all you're trying to do is get ahead, um, I think you're going to be miserable and you're going to be alone. So I think it's
Mhm.
important to focus on others. How do I help other people? Like I'm always trying to figure out how do I help this friend and how do I help that friend, it's a lot more rewarding living life like that.
I, I'm going to leave our session when the time is up, Nelson, with the attitude of trying to change people's breath work. Because if I can do that, I'm having an impact, right? Whether it's, however that is. But if you can change, because as you've taught me, you're having an impact on somebody for changing their breath work,
Yep, 100%.
right? And that if that becomes my sole mission now is to change somebody's breath work, not only on the show, but maybe when I meet them for the first time or how I can help them for the second time, but having them kind of catch their breath and go, oh wow, that was awesome. Thanks for helping me, Mr. Keith.
I mean, even Keith, when you started, you were so energetic. It started me off even on this
Yes.
conversation with you today. So it's like, energy is contagious. So it is important to be able to like, use our energy for good. And I think that that's a great thing. If you can take that away from this, Zoom meeting, that's great.
Well, it totally is. And I'll tell you something too, Nelson, that's uh to hear you say that as somebody who works in this industry in your industry is a compliment to me because I've been able to deliver my energy to you through that green light in front of me and through this black module in front of me and
Yep.
you're drinking my Kool-Aid.
Yep. I'm
Right.
loving it.
So, I just what do we do here in the lab, Nelson? We try to make people happy and make them smile and take them down a path of great conversation. So,
Yep,
uh,
yep, yep.
do parents? So here's a question for you that I know Business Athlete Nation wants me to ask Nelson. Do parents still come into your office and do this? Okay, Nelson, make Johnny famous for me.
It's funny. I'll tell you a little story here.
You know what I mean?
I remember a parent that came into my office once,
Yeah.
and she said, "Okay, where do we set up?" I said, "What do you mean? Where do we set up?" She's like, "Oh, well, we have a little stage for little Sally." I don't remember her name at the time, but she said, "We want to set up our stage," and I'm like, Okay, well, there's a room right here. Why don't you go ahead and set up? And so I stepped out of the room and I came back. And when I came back, she had opened up an elaborate, like little stage with lights and colored, floor that kind of, I mean, it was kind of, I was like, oh my goodness, what is this mother doing? And then she said, okay, well, great. So we're going to start. And she pulls out like this director's thing. And she says, okay, 1, 2, 3. And she hits the music. And then her kid does this big old dog and pony dance. And then at the end of it, she turns to me. She's like, well, great. Are you going to sign me? And I said, we're going to have to think about it. We're going to, go home. We're going to go back as a staff and talk a little bit about it. But, we did not sign that client. And sometimes I see the parents want their kids to be famous at whatever expense, and that really puts representation off. Like we want kids to be real. We want kids
Yeah.
to have fun doing this. I mean, yes, put your kid in acting class, invest in like having some good classes for them. But if you as a parent want this career more than your kid, then you got to ask yourself, is this really the right thing for your kid? Like, don't do that to your kid, or they're going to regret it when they're 18 and you're going to spend all the money that you made in counseling sessions because their kid hated doing this sort of thing.
Mhm.
So I think it's important, as a parent, to make sure that a kid is balanced, they're enjoying doing this thing. And sure, if they just want to, if your kid loves doing this, then keep at it.
Nelson, how much has TikTok changed your industry and your game? I'm going to suspect your team or yourself could probably sit down on a phone and just flick TikTok and say, okay, talk to, pass, talk to, pass, talk to.
Well,
Has it,
I'll talk about social media as a whole.
yeah,
We had a client in the film called The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've seen that.
100%. Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah, we represent the young girl Sophia Hammonds in that project, and
Okay.
it was a very fascinating project, but a sad one in the sense that kids in our youth of tomorrow are so stuck in their phones and have these things rule their lives, and the teen suicide rate has gone up, because of that. So I think as far as social media goes, it needs to be a tool. You need to have boundaries around it. Maybe you say to yourself, okay, 20 minutes a day, I'm going to do social media. And what is the purpose of it? So again, ask the deep question.
Mhm.
What do I use social media for? I should use it as a tool. I should not be using it to get validation of what I should look like or who I should be or
Yeah.
compare myself to others and suddenly lower, your self-esteem may be lowered from that sort of thing. So especially with teens, I will say to a parent, listen, if your kid wants to do social media, great. Make sure that you're monitoring it. And also just make sure you have boundaries around it and understand what is the reason that you're really using it. So I think like anything else, it's like balance and boundaries, So for the parents that have balance and boundaries, I think social media is a great thing as a tool.
Mhm.
Um, I'm starting to use social media a lot more just because as I looked at all my talent on my roster, I'm like, well, goodness, this is the world we're getting into. It's like an I, as a business owner, said, okay, it's time for me to, drink that Kool-Aid because I have to be relevant and stay relevant with my team and my clients. So, but again, it's just a tool we use, so
Right.
it's
But I guess what I mean, Nelson. So yes, it's a tool for you, but is it? So my perception is that it has made your job. I don't want to use the word easier because that would sound maybe disrespectful to how you guys go about getting customers. But what I'm asking you is it easier for you and your team to identify newer talent, no different than when Usher discovered, Justin on YouTube, right? So you see somebody on TikTok, you're watching them, and then you reach out to the parents, or do you wait for parents to reach out to you guys?
honestly, we're kind of at the point that generally like people come to
Come to
us.
you. Yeah.
But at the same time, we will from time to time, if we're short of a certain category, we'll
Yes.
reach out and seek that sort of individual. But honestly, we get so many leads every single day. I can't even catch up with the amount of leads that come in on a day-to-day basis. So you do have to stand out though, and for us, we don't want just the next TikTok star. We want someone that like is a trained actor. We want people that like are truly great artists. So we go scout to top acting schools in town and referrals from other agents. so that we can really, help them get to the next level of their career. But, it does give us one more way to find talent, and we will use that from time to time as a tool, but it's not the only thing we do nowadays.
Well, so I strategically asked the question, Nelson, and I have to move myself to this camera angle and just ensure that I have the proper light here on me. So I did a little bit of research before the call, and I think there's a shortage in the category.
Okay.
Short, aging men who are balding, because Danny DeVito's on the way out, and you're talking to one right now, Mr. Parks. So if you're looking for somebody in that short, aging, has the charisma and can talk in the accents, and can maybe portray it, you can sign me, my friend.
You got it. Well, we'll take a look at, have you ever done any acting classes before?
Oh shit, no, man. Just me in front of the camera every single day of my life for the last few months, talking to awesome human beings like yourself.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the other guests that you've had on the show, and like who has impacted you the most.
Oh, that's a really great question. Thank you for asking me that. So the first one that comes to mind, actually. So I've been doing this show now, Nelson, since regularly since the end of October of last year. Okay. I've had one guest on my show. I've had a lot of tremendous guests. And if you've heard some of the shows, every now and then I'll pop in at the end saying, oh my God, you're my favorite guest. I hope nobody else heard this. So, but I had one gentleman on my show who at the age of 46 was told he had 36 months to live.
Wow.
His name is Ian Clark. Mm-hmm. Hey, Ian, what's shaking, man? A lot of love to you, brother. He said basically, fuck that. And he made a point of actively living. Mm-hmm. I met with him. He's 76.
Wow.
And he's like, Keith, I'm actually 23, just look like I'm 76. Yep. He woke up every single day from that moment, Nelson, and made it an active purpose to live a day longer, mm-hmm. instead of what he calls it, and I love this, and I hope you'll take this too, which was instead of doing what Western medicine does and tells you, is you're just going to die on time. Mm-hmm. Okay, Nelson, well, you're 76, you're 80, statistically, you're probably going to die pretty soon, so you're just about dying on time. And he's like, I'm not dying on time. I am going to die on my time. I'm going to instead live on my time. And that really moved me, man. That really moved me, because that's just kind of what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to inspire people to achieve big goals. I'm trying to inspire people to move forward. I'm trying to inspire people to pulley up the mountain and get through things with this show.
Well, I'm going to stop you, Keith. You're not trying. You're actually doing. So instead of trying, because I removed that word out of my vocabulary, it's really about you actually are making an impact on people, and so that's where I think we need to live our life, that we are, actually doing this and living this. So, so great. Thank you for sharing that story about your friend.
Yeah, he was Ian Clark, fantastic fellow. And that's what I truly love about doing this show, is every single day I'm fortunate to get to meet with interesting human beings that have stories to tell. And so when I sit down with a person like yourself, it really fascinates me, because you, for me, is like a vehicle to the thousands of people you've met with, to the hundreds of people you've worked with, to the thousands of actors and parents that you've met, and then all those stories. So when I look at, so I looked at who Nelson was and before we hooked up here today, and then I started thinking, okay, some of the questions I'm going to ask, I don't do these things scripted at all, because what made me very curious was not so much you, but all the stories in your head that you've learned. That's fascinating to me. You follow me?
Yep. I mean, like, widen out on your camera for a second. I'm going to show you the plaque on my wall there. Yeah. That one right there.
Yeah, I saw that. Was it MKTO? What is that?
MKTO. Okay, so let me just tell you a little story. So years ago, I met with a kid, and I signed him at the age 5. Yeah. His name is Malcolm David Kelly, and we put him in the film Antoine Fisher with Denzel Washington.
Yes, I know it. Yeah.
Then we put him on You Got Served. In that project. Then he was the kid on Lost with J.J. Abrams.
Yes. Okay.
There. And then he's worked tons as an actor ever since. And he started a band called MKTO that went platinum. And what an incredible journey he's had, like traveling all over the world. In Australia, he would pack out audiences. And he's 31 now. We've been repping him since the age of 4. So clients like that, we just are so excited that we've been able to impact and stay in their lives that many years, you know. We have another kid that was on the series Mixedish. Again, we worked with for about a year, and then we got him on that series. And it's great to be able to impact people's lives like that. You know, we built people like, you know, we started an actor by the name of Ashton Sanders, and we had him in the film Moonlight. Moonlight won an Oscar, you know, and so we've worked with clients like that. The series All That, which is a Nickelodeon series. We had two girls on that series, Reese Cadell and Aria Brooks, very talented actors that have grown up with us. So it's great that we've been able to, you know, start talent that has just really grown up with us, you know, and to see how their careers have transformed. And working with clients like this have taken me all over the world. I've been to India and Africa and Paris, and had such amazing experiences, you know. And doing this sort of work has brought me other opportunities. Like, for example, there's a book right now called Conflicting Loyalties that I had here on my desk. And we've been marketing this book. And it's a fascinating book about a kid that was in the mafia when he was a kid. Whoa. And I'll read you the first thing. It says, at only 18 years old, Aiden Gabor faced a decision to spend the rest of his life in prison or become an undercover agent for the Department of Justice. So it's a fascinating story, and it's a true life story by this guy named Aiden Gabor that grew up in the mafia. And by the time he turned 18, he had to make a difficult decision, and decided, you know, to work with the DOJ and actually bring politicians and people down that were not doing good things in life. And, you know, so it's just a fascinating book that, you know, we hope one day gets turned into a movie. But, you know, it's a good book to check out. So working in entertainment has brought me all these sort of random experiences and working with people in all walks of life. And that's what I love, you know, my career as a talent manager, because it's given me the ability to, like, go to events. I've been to the Emmys. I've been to the Oscars. I've been to such fun events all over the world. And I've gotten to kind of see different glimpses and different stories of people's lives from all the people that we've been able to actually impact and make a difference in.
Yeah. Nelson, when you pick up that, so somebody who's been in your industry forever, when you pick up that book and you read the inside cover for the first time, do you instantly in your head go, oh yeah, there's a movie there, there's a series there, there's something visual there for the audience to dig into? Does it come to you that quick, Nelson?
No, it doesn't. I mean, for me, it's like it has to be a fast read for me. Like, if I can actually read it and want to keep turning the pages, I think that's when it makes a difference. So, you know, you can read a good 1 or 2 log line, but, you know, it may be a great story, but if it's actually not written in a way that, like, I feel like that I visually see it, it may detract me from pushing on it. But again, if it's a great idea and a great story, you know, there's always a place in the market. You just have to make sure that you're creative in the way you deliver the story.
Interesting. It's funny because I had a customer. I had a guest on the show a number of months back say, you know, you can be the greatest rapper in the world, but if you have no distribution, you're nothing. It's just like what you said. If you have the greatest story, but it can't be told in front of enough people, nobody hears it, it's really not a good story, is it?
Correct. And then also you need to have a great team. So you need to have a team around that whole story, you know, and you need to make sure you have a coach around that. So you're getting great coaching. So I think it's about the team, your coach, and the people you're surrounding yourself with, because that's who can impact and make a difference to get any project off the ground. You can have an awful project, but with an amazing team, and they can turn a project into something actually great because it was a great team that really had a vision and a life behind it.
I'm suspecting that probably happens more often than not in Hollywood.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, where shitty projects are brought to life with great human beings because they recognize that there's money to be made here, and we're gonna find ways to wring the franchises, right, or corporate franchises get wrung out over and over and over, right? The creative flair is gone, but it makes money.
100%.
Yeah.
I love your studio. I love your green lights.
Thanks, man. Yeah, hey, it's part of our branding and look here. You know, live in the lab with Keith Bilous. So we're at the segment of the show, Mr. Nelson Paredes Parks, where the old host here looks for advice from his guest, and the advice he's looking for today is, as I told my daughter, Nelson, Dad's an entertainer now. He's gone from taking the business hat off and building businesses. So he's now an entertainer. My daughter's 14, and you know how that responds is, hey, Nelson, she rolls her eyes and is like, fuck, really? And I could just, she's not dropping the F-bomb, but I can see the old eye rolling at the dad going, oh, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm even bringing the accents out on line piper. And then I get the big roll of the eyes, right? So I'm looking to break out into the entertainment industry, Nelson Paredes Parks. Do you have any advice for me as I try to make this show into more than what it is, me sitting in my basement in my green lit room? Don't tell anybody the last part.
Well, I think, the first thing you got to do is you need to sit down with yourself and ask yourself the question, am I getting into the business for the right reasons? If all you want to do is be famous, then don't pursue that, because fame destroys most people if they don't need.
All right, so we've moved Nelson from the stage because I'm sorry to say that he's wrecked my vision because I wanted to be famous. So see you, Nelson. We'll see you later, man. This is complete.
You got it. Well, that's the reality of it. If you're going to go down that path, you're going to have a lot of, you could get famous and make a lot of money, but you're going to mess your life up. Now, that doesn't mean that fame destroys everyone, because it doesn't. If you surround yourself with a right team that's going to tell you how it is, and this is the one thing I see, my wife, she works with a lot of top celebrities. She's one of the top estheticians here in Hollywood. Her name is Faith Tacho. She has a business called Touch of Faith Aesthetics.
Okay.
She touches the A-listers of the A-listers here in town and does their skin. And she's kind of seen it all. So, since I was the talent manager and my wife experiences that on a whole nother level, it's just been interesting to see. But one of the things that happens with fame, and it starts to happen when you start working as an actor, and it happens in the beginning of your career. And a lot of people say, oh, that'll never happen to me, never happen to me. But this is where it starts. You're on set and someone says to you, oh, don't get up. I'll go get your water. And I'll say to my client, listen, if you are strong enough to cross the room to get your own water, then get your own butt out of your chair and go get your own water. That's where it starts. Because at first, everyone's wanting to do everything for you. Oh, can I get you this? Can I get you that? Can I get your water? Can I do this for you? Can I do that for you? And in the beginning, it might feel like, oh, I'm special. Everyone's doing everything for me. But if you can do it yourself, do it yourself. Like if you're in the middle of a shot and they're filming a scene and then obviously you need a glass of water and you can't break the scene and someone needs to go grab you that cup of water, then great. Then have them do that then. But don't get in that habit of like that everyone should serve you. So what happens is these actors start working more in their careers, and they surround themselves with a bunch of yes men. And the yes man is just someone that just always says yes to them because they don't want to lose them as a client. They're like, oh, I just better make sure that but honestly, the talent does not respect that. You need an agent or manager that's going to be straight with you and be like, look, no, if you can do it yourself, do it yourself. So that's where it starts. It starts at the top, at the bottom of your career when you're starting to build up. And it's just important to kind of check yourself as you're working more as an actor and not to let it get to your head, So the clients that are wise enough to make sure that they kind of say halt. I got a call one day from one of my clients that I booked them on a big series, and they called me and they said, Nelson, I know myself, and the most important thing I need you to help me find is get me a good therapist, And so they got therapy before they got on a major show because they knew that they weren't going to be able to have the handle the success and money that might come from it. So she was really wise and said, you know what? Let me get some help first because I know myself and I know that I might need some help. So I think the actors and the talent that really connect and know themselves and surround themselves with a good team, those are the ones that are ultimately going to be most successful.
Well, and I think, if you come from a foundation of values already, where it's important for you to get up and walk across the room and get that water for you, I'm hopeful that that's going to stick with you where you're not going to be changed by fame, so to speak, right?
100%. When I see an actor and they start to get arrogant, I'll bring them to my office and be like, what are you doing? Why are you talking to people like that? You are not the same person as when you first started. And sometimes I've lost clients being that straight. But at the end of the day, it's like I go to bed feeling good that I'm making an impact and making a difference. And I'd rather help someone truly, And again, that's why my other business name is called Help and Answers. paredez.com. I'm always about helping others and helping people reach their potential and making the biggest impact in the world.
Nelson Paredes Parks, ESI Network, helpandanswers.com, and you had one more, AI.
The AI experts.
The AIexperts.com as well, I believe it is. Nelson,
Yep.
wrapping up our conversation, I've thoroughly enjoyed the chat today. Thank you for joining me in the lab and talking about the industry, talking about coaching. I know when you and I had a pre-call over coffee, I said, dude, my mantra is just to have an open mic and have a good conversation. Did this serve you well?
This was awesome. Thank you so
Good.
much. I'm happy to get on any other podcast in the future. If you ever do a group podcast with real people, and I actually am starting my own podcast in like probably May or June, and it's going to be called My Power Question.
Okay.
So it's going to be powerful questions to impact and change your life.
Let's do something. I'll offer this to you, Nelson. So a colleague, friend, new account, one of my new colleagues here, we started a morning show here Monday to Friday. We stream live at, in your time. So I'm here in Central Time. You're in Los Angeles. So it's actually the middle of your probably third REM sleep. So you might still be sleeping when we start it. But we do a live show from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. I've been trying it out. It's been working quite well. Great engagement on all the platforms. Maybe we jump in and do a segment. Maybe from time to time, if there's people in your industry you want to bring on and talk about, the effects of AI in the business, the effects of, I don't know, just spitting with you out loud, but I think we could have some fun things. So if you think of old school talk radio like you probably grew up with and I grew up with,
Yep.
I think we could create some great segments here on the show. The greatest compliment you could give me, to be frank, is if you know of interesting guests or human beings that you want to throw my way, I'd love to talk to them. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your wife. Would love to have them on the show. And I, honest to God, think we can create some great content around some of the topics in your industry. People are interested in that shit, man. And I think that we could have some really cool cool discussions around that. I'm fascinated by the impacts of AI on your business. Or on the comments of Tyler Perry last week saying, hey, I'm not spending $800 million on my studio because I'm just going to use Sora. And I'm waiting to use Sora in my business before I hire a bunch of video people. So I'm fascinated by what's happening in the space, and I think we can continue to create some great content together, my friend.
Awesome. Well, I am all up for it. So let's do it.
Cool. All right. Nelson Paredes Parks, I'm going to stick you back in the green room for a quick second. I know we're recording, but I still like to go say goodbye to the audience. So you hang tight, okay?
You got it.
1 sec. All right, Nelson Paredes Parks, he's not making me famous. So if you didn't hear the whole hour of the show, I would not encourage you to listen to any of it because there's no value. He disappointed me and I'm not going to be famous. So what the hell? All jokes aside, y'all know Uncle Keith over here in the lab. I like to have fun with you all. Great chat. I learned a lot of great awareness. And there's one thing that I really took from the call. The one thing that I took from the call, and I hope you guys as well, guys, girls, everybody out there listening right now, is when you enter a room, focus on moving the breath of the person or the people you're speaking to. And if you move the breath in the wrong direction, you're having an impact. I'm Keith. I'm out of here. You know where to find me Monday to Monday, live in the lab at noon, and mornings in the lab with Nicole. We'll see you guys. Ciao.